swear this hair is just getting out of control. Oh, oh wow, I can see. Hello, this is Dustin DaHusky here, and today let's talk more about pandemic talk topics. And there's a few other subjects that I like to also discuss too, just thought of in the last week or two. And one of them is actually kind of a big thing, a pretty serious thing. And it is said, they say 2020 will get worse for this. However, it's next year, when the end of the year comes around for some of these, let's just say limitations. 2021 is supposed to get worse as far as what's going to happen. That is evictions. Not a fun thing. I've never been evicted before. I have known people who were evicted. It's not a very fun feeling. Anyone out there who has been evicted for one reason or another, if you want, let us know in the comment section below the really, really awful feeling that comes with being kicked out and nowhere else to go. And because of pandemic, earlier in the year, much of the economy kind of fell flat on its face because we're not sure about this virus, not sure what it exactly does, how it spreads around. So they decided to shut down much of the economy to make sure it doesn't spread as fast as it already has, and experiment to see what are some of the reasons, causes of transmission of this virus, and see if it has something to do with work. Which, yeah, you can get sick through work. I've been sick through work a couple times, maybe once or twice a year. It's like in my college years. I always got sick once in the fall and once in the spring. Beyond that, the rest of the year would be perfectly fine. Rarely ever get sick more than 3 times a year. But people were worried. People weren't sure if everyone would get sick. So, of course, companies decide to shut down, or states would forcibly shut down companies that are not essential. Hence the old, are you an essential or non-essential worker? Which a lot of people are starting to look at jobs differently. Can you work at home? Which actually is another topic for another time. Can you work at home? Is your job going to be consistent through a pandemic, an emergency, a disaster? Is it essential? And unfortunately, not a lot of jobs in this country are essential. I'm even surprised my job was essential, but we work for the military. So we are actually essential. We have medical contracts as well, but most of our customers are not essential, so we were literally going day by day, keeping lights on. Still busy as hell, but nothing left during this time. But anyway, people were out of work. People were out of work. I think I may have mentioned before with employment, or finding employment, looking for a job in this time. That's a separate video. There was a record-breaking 43 million people on unemployment benefits that have actually filed for unemployment, which in this country hasn't, the numbers which have never been seen before to that degree. As I mentioned before, the highest pre-pandemic unemployment registering number per week was 800,000 people. That was the record, and that was back in 2007. I think the record was either 3 or 4 million people in 1 week have filed for unemployment benefits. So we're not living in normal times. Obviously, this is 2020. Nothing's been normal so far. So people have been unemployed for 2, 3, 4 months. Some people are still out of a job. That's awful. People have bills to pay. Me, I still live at home because I still live at home. However, I don't make enough money along with another person or a few other people because I don't want to rent an apartment. I like house. But I've been lucky with having very little loans over my head. In fact, I'm going to be paying off my car in 4 months' time. I've been working during this. My mom works for a school district, which she's still working, so that's amazing. My brother worked this whole summer. Curdan worked all year so far as well. So we were always working. However, we were always not sure how long the work would continue. And even still, there's a possibility of, are we going to make sure we can pay the mortgage? A lot of Americans are absolutely suffering right now through paying rent. In fact, there is a moratorium right now from the CDC that has recommended from the CDC until the end of the year to have a moratorium on evictions. Landlords are not allowed to evict people during this time because where are people going to go? They can't find work. If you evict them, where in hell are they going to go? Most evictions, since there's so many, and it's not to say that landlords can live off a fat stack cash somewhere. Actually, a lot of landlords are living paycheck to paycheck as well. So this is hurting landlords too. However, they're forced to grit their teeth and say, hey, if it means that people can stay in their homes and get backlog pay when things get better, okay. However, they got bills to pay too. It's not a fun situation, not a good situation, but this country is absolutely fighting back the notion that landlords should just throw people out anyway if they can't afford to pay. However, you've got people that are on unemployment benefits right now, which is I think like 600. It's 600 a week plus another 300 or 600. That was like a bonus on top of that for a while. I don't know if they've extended that past July. All I know is unemployment is 600 a week. I think it's across the board. So regardless in the country, I think it's just basically 600 a week. However, you have to pay taxes on that. So not free money. You have to pay that back somehow. However, on NPR, they were talking about what do people spend their unemployment checks on. And a lot of, like, do you pay your rent? Do you pay loans? Do you pay your bills? A lot of people are going straight for the bare essentials. Whatever food that they're able to scrap by and whatever they're able to save up for rent. Some people are totally foregoing paying any bills and figure it's better to pretty much have bills stack up. Credit card bills, phone bills, whatnot, internet. Credit card, yeah, you do need to pay that off. That's in your name. Okay. But phone bill, internet, gamer subscription, pretty much anything monthly that's considered a luxury is certainly a luxury. It's not something you don't need to have. When you're in a situation like that, those tend to be the very first things that you can live without for the time being. However, yeah, you cannot live without a phone because it happens to be your only phone. You may not be able to actually look for jobs that way. But some people got to do things to really get by. They're either on the streets or they can stay at least under a roof. And the moratorium ends at the end of the year in this country. And when they say 2020 is going to be the canceled year, they're saying already right now that 2021 is going to be the year of evictions. Because that's when landlords absolutely cannot continue having people stay without paying, which, yeah, it's not great. But holy moly, now landlords are into the same predicament that now they can't even pay their own loans back. Oh, heads are going to roll. I think evictions are going to happen. Well, actually, it's going to happen. And landlords are probably going to lose quite a lot. In fact, they're probably going to have to pay, or they're going to have to lose a lot to pay a lot. Already in the state of Wisconsin, since May, throughout this whole summer, so I think from May, June, July, there's a study made that since the eviction moratorium in the state of Wisconsin was lifted back in May, where during the spring months, in the earlier months of the pandemic, there was an order stating that landlords were not allowed to evict people, especially families, out of their apartments, rented units, condos, whatever. Anything that's a monthly rent, they were not allowed to evict because they didn't have the money to pay. So I think renters' forgiveness of rent, I don't know how it's called. They had a word for it. And as soon as that moratorium ended, the day after, renters were throwing families out into the streets. By the end of July, there were 400 families in Milwaukee alone that were homeless because they couldn't pay the rent for one reason or another, because whatever work they did before is not ongoing. They can't find work, which you can find work. Yeah, it may not be the best work. Even me looking for jobs to get away from my current job, yeah, there is work out there, but I'd rather look for something nice. However, I have a job. That's the thing that keeps me, that's the thing that allows me to keep looking for better. When you don't have a job, you don't know if you're going back to your job, so you're sticking around to see if you get a call back a few months later. Well, you may not get that call. I'd say after a month or two, if you don't get a call back from your previous employer, you may as well start looking for other work. I would not wait for your employer unless by contract, union, whichever. I know with my mom's union, she's not allowed to look for work until they've let her go. That's when she's allowed to look for work. However, if they've not gotten a call from them saying anything, well, they can't look for work either. But they don't get paid for. Yeah, it's a messed up situation. So, what does this mean to a lot of people? Well, a lot of uncertainty ahead. We already know that this year is uncertain as it is. And now people who are struggling to pay their rent, or not at all, it's the question of, do you want to use the money from unemployment for food or for rent? Some people who live on their own have a hard time deciding that, whereas most furries I know who rent an apartment usually rent with another or two other furries in one unit alone. That's kind of a given. Whether if it's a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment unit, normally they split costs 3 ways anyway. So if one of those furries were unemployed, collecting unemployment benefits, in that case, it's hard enough to get evicted if everyone else is working, paying for rent, landlord's happy. Okay, so in that case, not so much an issue. But evictions for ordinary people is going to climb. And right now, it's a stagnant number that doesn't climb all that much as of right now. Because there's that moratorium. They're recommending landlords, because of flu season, to keep people inside their homes. That's the whole reason why they have this moratorium right now, is to make sure that people don't get more sick. And if they're out and about homeless and they get sick, there's not much they can do. They don't have any insurance at this point. And if they had insurance through work, that does not cover them anymore. Because it depends on their plan or their employment status. But for the most part, they have no money to pay for medical bills. They don't have no money for anything. It's an all-around mess. And 2021 is going to be even bigger mess, which spills into... Again, don't want to get too much into it. It's not my... It's not my, well... Politics. I don't like to talk about politics. But this touches back on something 1 or 2 election cycles ago. There's this one gentleman whose catchphrase was, "The rent is too damn high." In 2020, now looking at it, a lot of people are struggling to pay rent. You know what? Regardless of where you go in this country, rent is too damn high. Especially in the cities. The cities is astronomical. Yeah, okay, but you would think the more people you have, the better chances you can actually get better pay. Yeah, cities do pay better. But holy moly, do you pay to live in a city? So you're actually spending more of your money that you earn just to live somewhere than to do anything else. Which explains why a lot of furries that live in the city don't own cars. Or they have a license, but they would rather rent a car. Actually, in most major cities, if you live in Chicago, New York, wherever, a big metropolitan city, license is a good thing. If you have your license, smooth sailing. You can always rent a car. Not a big deal. But rent is way too damn high in this country. And if unemployment is supposed to do your everyday needs to be met, food-wise, having a roof over your head, they say $600 a week or $600 2 weeks. I forget. When you think about it, that's not a lot of money. Not a whole lot of money. And I don't even get... Or if it is $600 a week... Yeah, that's more than I get paid a week. Yeah. It's either the rent is too damn high or the wage is too down low, but that's something else. Yeah. It's going to be a very shaky year for people renting. Housing is a better way to go because you have a fixed rate monthly mortgage, but it's lower than most apartment units out there, and you get much more for your money each month than you would renting an apartment. And at the end of it, you get to own the bit of property that you were paying off every month for 30 years. An apartment unit you cannot own. You can have a long-term lease somewhere, living somewhere. you could be like my French family in Paris who lived in an apartment unit for almost 50 years. Actually, 48 years. They lived 48 years in one apartment unit. You know what? It's a time capsule. Like many apartment units, you don't have any control over what you can do renovation-wise. You have to get approved by the super. So, anytime I visit my family in Europe, we would stay in a apartment unit that was first built in 1966, and my French family had moved in it fresh when it was ready to go. Just before or just after my mom was born. They were moving into that little apartment building, which actually was quite nice. Very, very 60s. And look, I grew up so strange. Like, from my mom's perspective, everything is from the 1960s. So when I visited months on end for many years, lived in 1960s Europe style, born in the 90s, but grew up with a lot of 80s and certainly 90s pop culture, music, whatnot, technology. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm actually careening off this subject, but rent's too damn high, wages too damn low. Landlords are not evil people. They also have to make a buck too, and the way they do it is your rent money. When you can't pay rent, they can't pay whatever loan they have on their buildings. So when you think you're hurting, they're also hurting as well. Not many people think about that either. Holy moly, it's a mess. I say, if you're struggling to pay rent, and if you own a car, it's probably not a bad idea to just do Uber Eats, DoorDash, whatever. Pick any job, just so that you don't have to worry about being kicked out. Because that's the least of your worries, is to get kicked out right now. Regardless of where you live, make sure that you make it out just fine every month. Of course, basic needs, foods, hygiene supplies, because you want to make sure you brush your tooth. So, there's basic human necessities that need to be met still. But rent is also another human necessity that needs to be met as well. Unfortunately, it's a big one. So you and your roommates figure out a plan for this upcoming year. See what you guys want to do. Plan something. Because if you guys are close to being kicked out, definitely come up with a plan sooner than later. Because this is going to turn pretty ugly. And evictions this year are supposed to be low. It's the calm before the storm. Unfortunately, they say 2021 is going to be huge for evictions. They're just saying it. They're not sure if it's going to be, but knowing how the landlord economy, as far as, people, there's renters and there's rentees. I don't know how that works. Anyway, by the end of this year, landlords are going to be so burdened to get any bit of money, either that the government's going to have to bail them out by giving them a cash just to keep their costs down, rent forgiveness, I don't know what they're going to do. The landlords are going to be itching to get rid of people by the start of next year. Not because they want to, but because they need to. When people need to be staying in their homes, how long can we actually do that until there's no way we can maintain that? That's the sad bit about what's going on, is all this is kind of inevitable. And this pandemic actually, you know what? This pandemic has taught us one thing, is that the very system that we believed in to take care of us barely can do that right now. And this is actually at our worst. The worst in our lifetimes. And it shows that the system barely can take care of itself, let alone the people it's supposed to take care of. So, I don't know how things are going to get better with pandemic going on. They say, get rid of this pandemic so we can get the economy back rolling. Economy is always still going to be there. It ain't going anywhere. Nah, yeah. If you're worrying about jobs, well, the jobs will still be there. Some jobs won't be there. This pandemic will certainly make sure that some sectors of this economy will change forever, and a lot of others won't. It'll just be a while until they come back. I think people worry about certain things too much, but when it comes to evictions, staying in a home, especially when it gets colder, especially flu season, it's more critical that people stay in their homes right now, even if it means they're living for free. It's not really for free because it's backlog rent. You're going to have to pay that eventually. However, when people do get their jobs back, that's a lot of money hovering over their heads to cover back past rent. Are landlords wanting a big sum of money right off the bat? Or they're just going to say, hey, you're paying your rent as normal, except it'd be like a bank loan. Yeah, you have this amount, however, if you're able to pay for more, and, you know, a little bit more goes a long way. Okay. All right. It's a very, very caustic situation right now. So, not a fun subject. But it's something that's going to have to be mentioned because that is going to be in the next year. So if you're in trouble, figure out a plan now. Stay calm, but certainly, while there's amnesty right now for renters, figure out a plan now so that you don't have to get into too much trouble by the end of this year or by next year. Because no one knows what's going to happen next year. If there's going to be rampant homelessness because landlords are kicking people out, or if they're going to extend the moratorium on evictions. I don't know. That's yet to be seen. So, well, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time on hopefully more interesting subjects. See ya.